Welcome to the Effortless English Show with the world's #1 English teacher, AJ Hoge, where AJ's more than 40 million students worldwide finally learn English once and for all, without the boring textbooks, classrooms, and grammar drills. Here's AJ with a quick piece to help you learn to speak fluent English effortlessly.
Hi, I'm AJ Hoge, the author of Effortless English. Learn to speak English like a native. Go to effortlessenglishclub.com. effortlessenglishclub.com. Join my VIP program to speak English powerfully, confidently, fluently. Speak English effortlessly. Join my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com. Oh, a nice, very warm, sunny day today in Osaka. I'm sitting at the park, and the direct sun feels good. Nice and warm today. Very nice day. Had a good live show last night. I will add the recording of that show soon to the audio podcast. It's already on my YouTube channel. Tonight I will add it to my blog at effortlessenglishclub.com. You can always get those live video recordings on my blog at effortlessenglishclub.com. A little complicated, a little complex, the chapter yesterday. Mostly just because of vocabulary, because John Taylor Gatto, he was comparing two kinds of, let's just say, social systems. Two kinds of connection, social connections. Kind of the old, traditional way of social life, social connections. The old way, or old ways, and then the modern ways. Now, the old ways are family, based on family. The center of social life, of human connection, right? All social connection, human connection was the family. Family. And then the modern social life, which is based on school for kids and jobs for adults. School and jobs. That's the modern one. So the old one he calls community, real community, which is based on families. And the new one, the modern one, he calls networks, based on schools and jobs. So a lot of that chapter yesterday that we talked about, chapter 4, was just comparing the old social systems, social life, which was focused on family first, which is what we have done for almost all of human history. Family was the focus until very, very recently, right? With our Industrial Revolution in the United States, it started changing after the American Civil War, when those evil Yankees won, and the Industrial Revolution came, and we began to see this centralized control of everything, right? This one central power, the government in America, the U.S. government, the federal national government in D.C., controlling more and more and more of everything, taking control of all parts of human life and all parts of human social connections. And in the world of money, we saw these giant companies Right? Again, centralizing, taking more and more and more and more control of our financial lives. Before the Civil War in the United States, most people were independent financially. Right now, we talk about it like that's some magical thing, like it's such a amazing thing to be financially independent. Right? Robert Kiyosaki wrote a whole book about it. We did last time with our book club. Lots and lots and lots of people write books and books and books about this topic, how to be financially independent. It seems like this big goal. And indeed now, it's not common. It's very uncommon now. But what John Taylor Gatto is telling us, what we know, that it was the normal thing. Before the American Civil War, that's about 1861 actually, but before that in America, almost everybody was independent financially. Almost everyone. The huge majority of people were financially independent. They were not employees. They owned their own businesses. They were financially free. Not rich, they weren't rich, okay, they didn't have huge amounts of money, they lived simple lives, most of them, but they didn't work for someone else for a paycheck. They didn't depend on another person, a big, huge company, to give them money every 2 weeks or every month. Now, most of them were farmers. Most of them were independent farmers, but they were independent, right? Because they had their own little home. They owned their home. They didn't have to go pay a bank for their home. They didn't pay a bank for 20 years or 30 years for their home. No, they had their home. They built their own home. They made it themselves. You know, their own simple home, usually simple, but they made it themselves, so they owned it. They owned their land. And then they grew food, so they could easily grow their own food, right? So they didn't have to go to a grocery store all the time. They could grow their own food, and of course they grew a lot of extra food, which they sold to markets. So they were independent financially, not working for a paycheck. The second biggest group, farmers were the biggest. The second biggest were little small business people, little small entrepreneurs, kind of family businesses, what we now today would call a family business, like a little shop. My own family, my dad's family, the Hoge family, they used to own little shops. They were kind of from a farming area, and they own a little general store, and they would sell things to the farmers. Right, so local shop owners were the second biggest group. And they owned all different kinds of shops, but they were small little family businesses, not huge corporations. But again, they were independent, right? They were financially independent. They weren't working for a paycheck. They didn't have to go to work, and they didn't have a boss. They were their own bosses. So together with farmers and then little small family businesses, that was most American citizens. Most American citizens were financially free and independent before the Civil War. Now, after the Civil War, it changed very quickly. The Industrial Revolution came, and then this centralization, where just a few people, a few groups started to dominate and control everybody, and people became less and less and less independent, less and less and less free, right? These huge companies, these huge banks, at that time, the big railroads, these huge companies began to eat up all the money, and more and more and more and more people lost their little businesses and their little farms and became employees, right? Slaves for money. And now, today, most people are slaves for money. Now, today, not many people, it's a minority, right? It's a small group that are financially free and independent. Now, today, that seems like it's such a big goal, such a amazing thing to be financially independent. But it used to be normal. And this was true with government. Before the Civil War in the United States, government power was mostly decentralized, right? Meaning it was the local towns had a lot more power, right? They decided most of the laws, the local towns and the states in the United States. That's why it's called the United States, right? Because originally the states had the most power, not Washington, D.C. It was each state could decide their own laws, how they wanted to live. And even more than states, even local towns, or what in America we call counties, which are little areas, small areas of land, like a town, they had more of the power. So it was decentralized. So again, much more independent and free, but after the Civil War, this became more and more and more centralized, with one giant powerful government in Washington, D.C. getting more and more and more control, until now, of course, today, they control almost everything. They're incredibly powerful, right? We have these gigantic companies that control everything, that control all of our media, all of our news and information. We have this giant government which controls almost all of our education. With these giant companies and banks that control almost all of our money. So now most people must work for a boss, a company. So this is what he was talking about in chapter 4, that this change from family and local communities, this change from decentralization to what we have now, centralization, concentrated power, a few people at the top controlling so much of our lives. That change has changed our social connections. That's what he was talking about. That's what he meant when he's talking about networks and communities and families. And he's the vocabulary he's using is he's using it in a little bit of a different way, not a usual way. I think that's why some people were confused yesterday a little bit by how he was using the vocabulary. But basically, he's just talking about how our social lives have changed since that time period, the 1860s. So now today, our families are weak. Most of our families are very, very weak. School and jobs have replaced our families, our communities. Our families are weak. Our communities are destroyed completely. So what do we have? How do we connect with other people now? Well, now it's what? It's at school, it's at jobs, social media, I don't know, occasionally what? Some kind of club or activity, a hobby. But he's saying that all these social connections we have now, they're shallow. They're not deep. Shallow means, right, not deep. Opposite of deep. It means weak. The connections are weak, right? Real connections with family, traditional connections with family, a strong family, those are deep. Those are deep connections, strong, powerful connections, because they are for life, right? If you have a brother, they're your brother forever, okay? They're always your brother. Your whole life, they are your brother. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you are very different. It doesn't matter if you're the same. It doesn't matter if one of you's rich or poor, successful or failure. It doesn't matter if you fight all the time or you love each other a lot and always agree. It doesn't matter. They are always your brother. Always, 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 they're your brother. That's a deep connection. That's a lifelong connection. Right? It's the same with your mom and your dad and your sisters and your aunts and your uncles and your grandparents and your cousins. Right? That's deep. That's deep, deep, deep. Strong. On the other hand, some friend you have in school, let's say a friend you have in, middle school, probably they will not be your friend. 10 years later, you'll forget about them. You'll go and do something with your life, and they will do something else, and they're gone. Right? I mean, for example, I have no friends from middle school. I can think back and kind of remember my friends from middle school, but I'm not friends with them anymore. I have no connection to them anymore. And the same is true actually for my high school friends. Right? Because those are shallow connections. They're not deep. They're kind of just convenient connections, those kind of connections. Same with people you work with, right? You might be friendly. You might be friendly with some of your coworkers, some of the people at your job. You might be friendly. You might like them. You might do things with them socially. Maybe go out with them after work. I don't know, get a drink or do something. You might do that, but it's not a deep connection. If you quit that job, you go work somewhere else, probably you'll lose that connection very fast. They will not remain friends with you. You will not keep that connection, right? Because it's just a convenient connection. It's only because you're together at this job right now at the same time. You're sharing that job. Maybe you share some interests or some hobbies or something. That's all. But it's a weak connection. It's not real. That's what Gato's saying, that we threw away our families. We have surrendered our families. We have weakened and destroyed our families for these, and replaced them with these weak connections of school and jobs. This is his answer when people ask, well, what about socialization for your kids? They need to go to school to socialize. Well, that's just ridiculous. Just look at history, okay? We didn't have schools most of human history. How did children socialize before 1860? Well, they socialized with their families, with their brothers and sisters and cousins, and their local communities. It's not that complicated. This idea that school is for socialization and that school teaches social skills is just a lie. It teaches the opposite. It teaches terrible social skills. It teaches fake connections. Shallow. And jobs are the same. We all know this, right? If anybody who works, you know this. Do you really feel close to the people at your job? Most of them, do you really think they're your true friends? Right? Like your brother or your sister or even a cousin? They're not. It's just convenient. And it's the same with school friends. You might have fun, like in university, and you go out and you drink with them, and it's all fun, and you're having a great time, and you're partying, and it all seems great. But you know what? 10 years later, most of those people, they won't care about you at all. They'll be forgotten. I'm speaking from experience, my own experience, and the experience of many, 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 many people I have seen and observed. That's what normally happens. School cannot replace family. Jobs cannot replace family. So what he's saying is that we have lost so much. We have lost so much because of schools and also because of this job system. They go together, right? The schools and the job system, they're basically the same thing. Job system is for the adults. The school system is for the kids. The school system, the schools, prepare the kids to become employees, to become obedient little employees in big companies. That's what the schools are really for. They teach just enough to help you get a job and work for a paycheck and be a slave for a paycheck. That's what the schools are for. That's their purpose. Not education, not meaning, not humanity, none of that stuff. Not socialization. Nope. Teach you to be a good, obedient employee. Get you into that system, this fake system. And the schools are designed to weaken and mostly to destroy families. So Gato's saying we have a choice. We must choose. This is either or. We can choose this centralized school system controlled by one government, right? Usually the national government in your country controls the school systems. And the jobs are controlled by these big companies mostly. We choose that, or we choose our families and real community. We have to choose. You can't have both. You can't have both because the school is against the family. And jobs are against financial freedom. So you really do have to choose. What's more important, your family or school? You have to choose. Now, many times, in many areas of life, you don't have to choose. In many areas of life, there are many possibilities. But I agree with him here, you have to choose. Every hour at school is an hour away from family. Every hour at school is weakening your family. Now, of course, John Taylor Gatto is saying that it's the family that's natural. It's the family that is healthy. It's the family that should be our focus. It's the family where education, real education, happens. And we can see before the 1860s in America, at least, we can see that before that time, people were more educated. They were more educated. People now are less educated. People now are stupid. That's why the name of the book is Dumbing Us Down. Okay? The average American person is stupid. Okay? The average high school graduate is stupid. They are stupid compared to somebody from, let's say, 1860. If you look at what the people from 1860 were reading, look at what the children were reading when they were doing homeschooling or their little neighborhood schools, their independent little schools in all these different little towns all over America. Look at their reading assignments. The level of reading was incredible compared to now. Our children are idiots. Okay, they were reading the Iliad and the Odyssey in Greek. They're reading the Aeneid in Latin. Our kids can't even do it in English. Our kids are stupid for the most part. They're stupid because the schools make them stupid. They're stupid and they're lazy. They can't think independently. They're just conformists. They just follow the rules like good little slaves. They can read like a basic newspaper, but they can't read anything challenging or difficult. Most kids in American schools are stupid. In fact, most university kids in America are stupid. They're stupid. This was true when I was in school. I remember my parents used to tell me, college is going to be so difficult. You got to, this kind of motivation, I guess. My parents try to motivate me. Study hard because in college it's going to be very tough. So I thought, okay, all right, gotcha. And I got to college, and guess what? It was super easy. It was because it was the same stupidity. It was the same stupid school stuff. It wasn't difficult. Schools are making our society stupid. That's why when you look around and you see so many stupid people, right, who act like idiots. They're rude and obnoxious and just obviously not very intelligent. It's because, they've been trained to be this way. The average person back in America, 1860, was more intelligent. They were better educated because they got a real education, not this garbage school that we have now. That's what he's saying. So, family and real education on one side, or schools, stupidity. Mediocrity means just kind of so-so, no, not excellent. That's what we have. Mediocre jobs, mediocre schools, mediocre kids and adults, mostly. That's what the schools create. And then the other part of it that is so sad is the loneliness. And I absolutely feel this. I felt it my whole life growing up. That the result of destroying our families, weakening our families so much, and sending us off to schools all day, and then after that to work, to jobs. Because think of it, jobs also destroy the destroy the family. I think of my own dad. He was not around very much when I was a kid. He was not around. Why? He was off at his job at IBM all the time. All day he was at his job, and of course he had to drive to his job and drive back from his job. So I only saw him at night for a couple hours. And then on the weekends he was often tired. He needed time to just relax and recover from his job. So I didn't get much time with my dad as a kid or as a teenager. He just wasn't around a lot. Because, why? Because he's off working at a job somewhere else, in a company. And of course, he's at this big professional company, so he can't bring his child there. I couldn't go visit him there. This also weakens families. So many kids grow up with basically no dads. Even if they have a dad, right, the parents are still married, but the dad is off working all the time. And now even, sometimes the mom is also off working, a full-time job. So the child basically has no parents. There's no family. It's a part-time family. It's like a part-time job. The family is the part-time job, but the company is the full-time job. The parents are spending more time, more energy at this company than with their own children. So the children grow up, of course they're lost. Of course they feel lost. So who's raising the children, actually? The government, employees at the school. Those are the real parents. The real parents become these employees, these bureaucrats who don't love the child. Many times they don't even care. Even if they care, they certainly don't love the child, and the child is in there with 30 other people, and it's not family. No wonder so many kids feel lost. No wonder so many kids feel lonely. No wonder so many kids feel unconnected from their parents. It's no surprise that when they become teenagers, they rebel against their parents, that they have anger towards their parents, that they don't respect their parents, that they don't understand their parents. Well, of course not. The parents have been absent. And so the child connects with other kids at school. The child looks to other kids for connection. But we know that's not a healthy connection. We know the result of that is not good. They can't learn important things about life from other kids the same age. Those kids don't know anything. So they're just learning from other kids their same age. They're learning from TV and the media, which is also horrible. And they have this kind of feeling of anger and disrespect and disconnection from their own parents. It's natural. This is what's going to happen, okay? If both parents work and they're not around very much, so the kid is at school 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day, and then after that, they go to daycare or they go somewhere else, and they only see their parents, a little bit at night for a few hours. Of course, what do you think's going to happen? It's easy to know. It's not a surprise what's going to happen. You're going to lose your connection with your kids. They're not going to respect you as much. And as they get older, more and more and more, you'll get that generation gap, we call in English, the generation gap, right? This fight between generations. See, it's interesting because I can think of my own family. I had that as a teenager with my dad, but not my mom. Isn't that interesting? Why? Well, because my mom was at home all the time, so I had a good connection with my mom. Now, as a teenager, I did argue with my mom sometimes, but we still had a good, close relationship at that age. But she was there all the time. But with my dad, I got in lots of arguments, and I felt this very strong disconnection from him, and I'm sure it's because he just wasn't around enough. So you see, you have to choose. It's your family or schools. Which is it? You have a choice. I'm not saying it's an easy choice. Some people on social media will say, yeah, well, it's not easy, AJ. Both parents need to work. I didn't say it was easy. I'm not saying it's easy. But it's the truth. This is the red pill, and it's the truth. You choose your family or you choose the schools. One or the other. You either have a great, wonderful, loving family that's very close, or you choose schools and both parents go and both parents work, and you will lose that with your children, almost certainly. Maybe you get lucky, but probably you won't. That's the hard choice of life, and right now, because of this system that we have now. But, this is the choice. We have to deal with reality. If we want this to change, we have to make better choices, different choices. See what John Taylor Gatto is talking about. He talks about in the next chapter, our final chapter next week, he'll talk about this a bit more. He talks some about the history of education before the Civil War in America and how it is such a good example of real education. And in the next chapter, he'll also talk about how do we change all of this, because we're living in hell right now. We're living in a kind of hell for families. We're living in George Orwell. It's 1984. This is Animal Farm we live in right now. It's already here. 1984 is already here. The brave new world is here. We have had it for a while. We're in it. So how do we get out of it? How do we get out of this terrible situation? How do we rebuild our families again? And then, once we rebuild our families, how do we rebuild our real communities again? Real neighborhoods. Real local communities where the people around you, who live around you. You have a connection, a real connection with them. Where it's the families that have the power, the communities that have the power, not some government way far away somewhere, not some giant company somewhere else. It's individuals and families and communities that have the power. It's decentralized. Well, it starts with this very simple choice. Family or schools? Family or schools? Now, the benefits of family, he talks about, healthy family, of course, right? Some people have unhealthy families, and, well, those are also caused by bad choices. But healthy families, it's a much, 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 much deeper connection. It's real. In your family, you connect with people as a human being, not as a student, not as a worker, but as you, right? Yeah, I think of my own sister. My sister is my sister. At one point I was poor and she was poor. She was my sister. Now her and her husband are actually quite rich. Me too. She's still my sister, right? When she was single, she was my sister. She's married, she's still my sister. She'll always be my sister. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't depend on the situation. It doesn't depend on, some temporary situation. She's my sister, she'll always be my sister. I'm her brother, I will always be her brother. That's a real connection. And it's so much healthier. We can be ourselves. That's the other thing about, right? I mean, hopefully in your family, you can be your real self, your full real self. Because at work, we can't be 100% real, right? You go to work, let's say you're really sad and depressed. Something sad and depressing is happening in your life, your private life. You go to work, what do? You have to pretend, you kind of pretend that, I'm okay, right? You probably don't share all of it with everybody, especially every day. You don't go to work and show how sad you are. Why? Oh, because it's a fake situation, right? They don't care. They don't care about you as a human being. They might be nice people, but you're there for a job. It's a shallow social network. So you go and you smile and you put on a little face for everybody. Now, with your true friends and your true family, you don't have to do that. With your true family and friends, you just say, oh, I'm super sad. And you act sad. And they say, oh, they try to make you feel better. Or they comfort you, or they just listen to you, whatever. But, they accept it. They accept you as you are. And the same is true on the other side, by the way. Like, let's just say you're just in a super great mood and you're super, 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 super excited and passionate about, let's say, just about anything. I don't know. Let's say you're like my nephew and you're for some reason you're super excited about bugs and you've been learning about insects and studying insects and you're just crazy about insects. It's so fascinating and interesting to you. Wow, so exciting. And you go to work at your job at IBM. Do you just talk super excited about bugs a lot with everybody? Probably not. Most people don't. Why? Oh, because they don't care about that. That's not part of your job. They don't care about you as a full human being. No. So you go and you pretend. You hide your enthusiasm. Right? You put on the face of being a professional. I'm a professional. Oh. And you actually hide your excitement. You actually bring it down and you don't show them the real you. But again, with your family, what do? If you have a healthy family, you just share it. I got these things with bugs, and you just talk about the bugs. And with your real friends, you'll just talk about it and have long conversations about it. And they might say, "Well, this is weird," but they accept it. Okay, you can be you. You can be you, the real you. That's the point. So you're connecting as a full human being, as the real you. You don't have to pretend to be somebody else because you're in this fake situation. It's the same at school. With kids are terrible about this, right? Especially as they get older in the middle school years, the high school years. They're always pretending. They're never sincere and open about who they really are because they're so terrified of being judged. They're so afraid of what the other kids will think about them, especially something negative, of course. They're terrified. And often the most popular kids are the worst. They're the most fake. I remember this from my own childhood, and I saw it also as a teacher when I was teaching young people. The ones that seem they're the most cool, they're the most popular. Sometimes they're also the most unhappy because they're fake. It's all fake. Those people are terrified. Those kids are so afraid of appearing foolish. They're so afraid to appear uncool, right? So again, let's say you have a 16-year-old and he suddenly gets excited about spiders for some reason. Does he go to school and start talking enthusiastically and energetically about spiders all the time and showing people pictures of spiders? And probably not. Oh no, that's not cool. Spiders aren't cool. No, you're supposed to talk about the latest cool music band, right? or some cool movie star or fashion or something. That's what they do. They're all little mindless robots. And they all talk about the same stuff, and they all try to be cool, and they're all looking at each other, trying to figure out how to be the same so that nobody will laugh at them. They're learning to be fake. They're afraid to be different. They're afraid to be real, just completely real. So no, they probably don't talk about that stuff if it's not cool. They hide it. And the same thing, if they're feeling, what if they're just sad? What if something in their life happened and they're really feeling sad? Do they go to school and just share that openly with people? No, they hide it, usually. And this is a habit they learn, and then this habit stays with many people for their whole lives. Their whole lives. They always have a mask. They're never 100% real about who they are, about how they feel, about what they think, about what they're interested in. They're always trying to figure out how to appear cool or good or smart or something to other people. Don't want to appear bad to anybody, so I gotta hide everything behind this mask. That's what they learn in school. That's the socialization your kids learn in school. That's the hard truth. I'm giving you some hard red pills. Okay? I'm not promising you anything but the truth, is what Morpheus said. And with this book, with John Taylor Gatto's book, and this topic, it's ugly. These are ugly truths, because these are hard, terrible, ugly truths. But we have to see the truth to make it better. Right? If you're fat, you're super overweight, and you're unhealthy, well, the first step is you have to admit it. Right? There are many fat people who say, oh, I'm okay, I'm fine, oh, I'm not that fat, I'm okay. And they just try to hide it. They don't want to admit the truth. So of course they never improve. They never get better. But if you're really fat and unhealthy, well, the first thing you have to do is look in the mirror and just say, I'm fucking disgusting. Sorry for the language, but that's what you need to do. You say, I'm disgusting. I am fat. I am lazy. I am unhealthy. This is disgusting. Enough. That's the first step. You got to do it. It's ugly. It feels bad. It's an ugly truth, but you have to admit the truth. You have to see the truth first. And then after you do that, of course, don't stay there. Don't stay there and just focus on that every day. Then you just make yourself unhappy. No, then of course you say, okay, so this is the truth. I'm fat. I'm disgusting. I'm lazy. How do I change this? That's the next step, right? How do I change this? And then you make a plan. Okay, I'm going to walk every day. I'm going to change my way of eating. And, step by step by step, you get thinner, you get healthier, you feel better, and you change your life. And then you become fit. You become healthy. You feel fantastic. Because you saw the ugly truth, and you saw all of it, and you admitted it, and then you changed it. That's why we're focusing on this ugly truth with the schools. So many people hide from it. They don't want to see the whole ugly truth, right? Because they've got a lot of propaganda in their mind about it. Some people feel guilty because they think, I don't know, I'm busy, so I send my kids to school. It seems like too difficult to make a change, right? People don't want to change because it seems difficult. So a lot of people just want to hide from these ugly truths. But nothing will change until you see the full and ugly truth. That's why I'm talking about it so in such a direct way. And that's also why John Taylor Gatto is so focused on it, and he has no mercy. John Taylor Gatto's writing is very strong about this, but he's telling the truth. He's telling the whole ugly, terrible truth. But we have to see the truth. We have to admit it. We have to see, wow, something is horribly, terribly wrong. This is the first step. You must be honest about the problem. then you have a chance to solve it. Then you have a chance for a much better life. And we do. Luckily, the solution's pretty easy. Despite some of the feedback and questions I see on social media and even from people directly in my own family, homeschooling is easy. It's an easy solution. It's so easy. It's such a simple, easy solution. That's the great thing. It's kind of like when you're fat. It's actually it's quite an easy solution, or maybe the word's not easy, it's simple. Right? If you're fat, well, stop eating junk food and go for a walk every day. And walk longer and longer and longer each week. Really simple. And honestly, it's pretty easy too if you just do it. Right? It's just changing your mind. Mostly it's, again, the battle with your own mind. But anybody who's not fat will say, well, it's not that hard, it's just easy. Don't eat that crap and do some exercise. Right? For people like me who are thin, it is easy. It's easy not to be fat. It's not hard at all. Just change your mind, change your thinking, and it's easy. Of course, the changing your thinking is the hard part. I understand that. It's that first step that is the hard part. It's the mental discipline that we've been talking about, right? From the Dhammapada, from the Gita, right? It's that mental discipline is the hard part. It's a mindset battle. It's a battle with your own mind. After that, the actions are not actually so difficult, right? The solutions are not so difficult. When you overcome the fear, when you overcome the excuses, when you just start taking action, you find, oh, well, this is actually not so hard. This is actually not so complicated. It's taking the first few steps that seem to be the most difficult for most people, because it's the battle inside that is so tough. It's the battle inside against the propaganda, against the fears, against the doubts, all these things that come up to make you not take action. Right? I mean, I know, because I have fat people in my family. They can make excuses and excuses and excuses and talk and talk and talk, and they will talk about all these complicated diet plans, and I'm going to start my diet next week, and oh, this and that, and oh, I have to be careful because of my blood sugar, and blah, 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 and they will talk endlessly about all these problems and fears and plans, but they never do anything. They never do anything. And so they stay fat. I've heard it for years and years and years. I'm so tired of hearing them talk about it. When they start talking about it now, I just stop listening. I'm like, yeah, you've been saying this stuff for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. You're saying the same bullshit, which, right? Nonsense. And never doing anything. And so you're just fatter and fatter and fatter every year. Stop talking and do something. Stop talking and go for a walk every day. Stop worrying about all your fears and all your plans in your head and eat a salad. Stop eating donuts. Lift weights. It's really very simple. Guess what? This school thing it's the same thing. You can think and think and think and plan and think of all the possible problems and difficulties of homeschooling and all these worries and what about socialization and math and how will I do this and when they get older, and you can do this endlessly. You can do it for months. You can do it for years and years, thinking of all the possible scary problems and all the reasons why it can't work and what about this money and on and on and on and on and on, and never do anything. Just stop. Just do something. Take action. Take action. Okay? You don't have to do everything at one time. Just take one step. And then take the next step. And then the next step. And then the next step. Stop thinking and start doing. It's just like Krishna said to Arjuna. Right? It's so similar. That's why that from the Bhagavad Gita it pops up in my head all the time, because it's such a great, and the whole thing's great, but that opening is fantastic, because Arjuna is like all of us. This is what we do, right? Arjuna, he's out there. The armies are ready. his army, the enemy army's in front of him, and the battle's going to start. And what does Arjuna? Oh, then he starts worrying. Then all these fears and thoughts and, oh, what about this? And he has all these doubts, and all this stuff comes in his head, and he's talking to Krishna. I can't do it. And, oh, I don't think I can do it because what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And what about this? He's making all these excuses, all these worries, all these fears. He's just going to quit and let the enemy destroy him and everybody, all the people in his army. And Krishna, verbally, not actually, but basically, Krishna just smacks him in the face and says, "Be a man, shut up. Stop being a coward." And then that starts the whole Gita. And he gives him a red pill, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. And he just starts hitting him with these hard truths. And some of them are actually not hard truths, they're beautiful truths in the Bhagavad Gita. Incredibly powerful and optimistic. In fact, I would say the Bhagavad Gita is one of the most optimistic and positive books and spiritual teachings, that I've ever seen or read. It's incredibly optimistic. But there are also some hard red truths in that book. And Krishna gives them to him. Boom! 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 And by the end, of course, finally, Arjuna wakes up and realizes, enough of this. And he does what he needs to do. He fights the evil. He becomes strong and he takes action. It's a good lesson. It's one of the many lessons from that story. This is, we can kind of see it as human nature. Arjuna's he's a big hero. He's not a wimp, okay? He's not weak. Arjuna's not a weakling. He's a big hero, a big, strong hero. And yet, at this moment of great difficulty, this terrible moment, he becomes overwhelmed by his own mind. He becomes overwhelmed by his own fears, the doubts, and all the thinking, the overthinking, thinking too much. And then he's about to quit. We all do this when we face these big, hard times, right? It's a temptation. So when we face this big hard choice, let's say with schools and education and this big hard red truth, and we face it, and then we just want to and we want to focus on all the doubts and focus on the worries, focus on all the possible things that could go wrong, all the possible problems. What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Right? And then we just get lost in our mind. We get lost in our fears, lost in our doubts, lost in our worries. It's a big danger because we can get lost forever. Many people get lost forever. They never take action. In the Gita, Arjuna, Krishna wakes him up. But some people don't wake up. Some people do quit. Some people do surrender, and then they just lose. They are destroyed, or they're unhappy because they never, ever take the action. It's a good lesson to think about, that when it's time to act, you need to act. When you see the truth, you just need to act. And thinking is great, but there's a time for action. There's a time to turn your mind off and do what you know you need to do. Do what you know is right, and just do it. And push aside all the worries, push aside all the problems, push aside all the doubts, push aside all the fears, even push aside all the goals, and just do what you know is right. Take action powerfully, directly, and just have the faith to do that. And when you do that, something magical does happen. This is what we're also taught. This is what Thoreau wrote about in Walden. Krishna talks about it in the Gita. We find this teaching again and again and again through all different civilizations, through history, that when you do this, when you boldly take this action, when you have that faith, you do what's right, you take the action, You're afraid. You don't know if it's going to work. You don't know, but you do it anyway. You have the faith because you know it's right and correct, and you do it. Something happens. You can call it luck. You can call it God helping you. You can call it the universe helping you. Whatever. You could call it the power of your own faith and confidence. You can explain it many ways, but something happens where it just seems to usually work. It's like you become more powerful. You find solutions. You become more creative. Most of the problems you imagined never happen. And when problems do come, you solve them. You deal with them and you keep going. This is the power of that action, that decisive action with faith and correctness. That's the power of seeing the truth and taking action. And it is like something in some power in the universe will help you and assist you. This is how Thoreau described it. I think he described it as the universe will align with you. Like some universal power, spiritual power will come into you or support you. But you have to have the faith and take action first. It won't do it when you're having all the doubts. That's your part. Your part is to overcome the doubts and the fears. You have to win the battle in your mind first. That's your responsibility. That's your job as a free human being. You have to win the battle in your mind. You have to win the battle against your fears. You have to win the battle against your doubts and worries and weakness. That's your battle. No one will help you with it. No one can do it for you. But when you do that, after you do that, then you will be supported. You will be supported. Use any explanation you want. You could explain it scientifically and psychologically. You could explain it religiously, spiritually. They both work for me. I think there's truth in both. But I have seen this. It does happen. When you just have that faith, you take what we call the leap of faith, the jump of faith, because you see something is true and correct and right, and you're afraid and you're worried, and I'm just going to do it. Boom, and you do it, and you take the step, and then something happens. You're filled with some kind of strength. The action, that first action, you'll still feel some fear and worry, but it'll be less, and you'll gain quite suddenly some strength. And then it will seem like, it just seems like you start to have good luck. Your luck starts to improve. Things start to happen that benefit you. And problems come up, but you deal with them and you solve them and you keep going. And then each additional step, each step you take with faith, moving forward, you get stronger and stronger and stronger. Like you are rewarded for that. You are rewarded when you win the battle in your mind. But not before. Not before. As you can imagine, I'm not just talking about school and homeschooling here. And I'm not just talking about losing weight. This is life. This is everything in life. This is all of life, all the things that make you afraid. I'll give you another one from my own life. Having a family. I myself was afraid of having kids in a family. That's why I have waited so long. For many different reasons. I was afraid financially because I couldn't support a family. I was afraid and worried because I felt I was not ready, emotionally ready. I was too selfish or too distracted or whatever. I felt like, maybe I'll be a bad father. My dad wasn't around very much, so I don't want to be like that. I had, worries and worries and worries and worries and all these worries and worries and worries and worries. And I avoided it and avoided it and avoided it, and filled with worries and fears and doubts and all kinds of excuses. And then finally took the step. finally I realized, you know what? No, this is crazy, and I've overcome those fears, and then suddenly I find it's like the whole universe, whatever you want to call it, Dharma, God, whatever, is suddenly working with me now because I overcame all of that. It's amazing. It's quite powerful. It wasn't easy. That was a hard battle for me. It was one of my personal, very tough battles. So I understand. I'm not criticizing when I say that. Some of you are saying things on social media. Some of you are worried about homeschool. Everyone has their own fears. Some of you, it's homeschooling. That's a hard one for you. But for some of you, that's not hard at all. For some of you, that's, oh yeah, no problem. That's great. But for some of you, the big fear was the last book, the Rich Dad stuff. Some of you, the idea of buying assets and being independent and financially, it brought up a lot of fears in you and worries and doubts, and all this stuff started coming up in your mind. Some of you, it was money. And maybe some of you, it's not that. It wasn't not money. It's not school. But maybe it's something else like me. Maybe it's, family. Being a dad or a mom or something like that. Or maybe it's the health and fitness thing. Or maybe it's something else. We all have our battles, is my point. Okay? So when I bring this up, when I talk about this, I'm not criticizing you because I have the same thing. It's just my battle's different. Okay? For me, the battle's not school. That one's very clear for me and quite easy. The battle's not really physical fitness for me. That one's also easy. Financial freedom was a battle for me. It took me 20 years of my adult life to become financially free. It was a a war. It wasn't a battle, it was a war. It was many battles to become financially free, to learn those ideas that Robert Kiyosaki teaches and many others, to learn specific business skills and to finally become financially free. It was a long, hard war inside my own mind, and then even just out in the regular world. So I don't want to make you feel like it's always easy. And I'm not criticizing you when you bring up these doubts. It's totally fine. Go ahead. I don't mind you bringing up the doubts. In fact, I like it because you remind me, people are worried about this, so you remind me to talk about it more. So it's very good. So it's not a criticism because I have the same fears and doubts. It's just maybe my fears or doubts are about different topics, right? And yours. Everyone's different. Some things are more scary and other things are not. So it's okay, we all have to fight our battles, is my point. And my other point is that on one hand, it's not easy because we're fighting ourselves. On the other hand, after you win, when you win the battle inside, usually it's much easier than you think. When you win the battle inside, when you get the knowledge and the skills and the power, becoming financially free is actually easier than you think. I was surprised by that because it took me 20 years to figure it out. When I finally figured it out, it was kind of like Robert Kiyosaki. It's like, this is actually not so difficult. The difficult part was changing my mindset and my knowledge and my skills and all my beliefs about money, and all of that was really hard, and learning the proper skills I needed. Once I had that, once I changed myself, it actually was not so complicated and not so difficult. That's why I like the physical, like the physical exercise example. I like it because it's simple, it's clear, we all understand it, right? For anyone who's been thin their whole life and had kind of physically fit their whole life, they'll tell you, if you talk to them, they'll just say it's easy. It's easy. Why isn't there's nothing difficult about it? It's so easy. It's easy to stay thin. It's easy to be in good shape. And it is easy. Once you change your mind, if you have the right mindset, the right beliefs, the right habits, it's super easy. It's not complicated. I don't do any difficult, complicated work. I go for a walk every day, about an hour. I do a few pull-ups and push-ups, a few little exercises like that. That's about it, really. I don't, when I get motivated, I'll do other things. I'll go run and do other exercises, but it's really not difficult. But that's because it's a lifelong habit for me. Right? I've had this habit, these beliefs in my mind my whole life. I've enjoyed physical activity and exercise. It's part of who I am. So it's super easy. On the other hand, for, let's say, my mom, it seems like the most difficult thing in the world to her. To her, she still thinks it's just some super complicated, incredibly difficult thing to be thin and have decent fitness. Because she never won the battle in her mind. I'm not attacking my mom. I love my mom. But it makes me sad with my mom because it hurts her quality of life. Her quality of life is lower because she's overweight and her physical fitness is not good. She's getting older, and it makes her quality of life much more difficult. Her life is more difficult because of that. So it's sad to me, but it's interesting because her whole life she's believed it's this difficult, complicated thing, but it's not. But it's complicated and difficult because of her mind. The complication and the difficulty is all in her own mind. It's her emotions and her beliefs that are complicated and difficult. Actually being fit and, having a good, healthy weight is extremely simple. So we all have this battle to fight in some area of our life. I'm sure you have at least one, unless you're a saint or something. Then you should be teaching us. But for all us normal people, we have one or more areas in our life where we have, in our lives, where we have this struggle. You don't need to feel guilty. You don't need to feel bad about it because it's human. It's normal. That's why we have books that are 2,000 years old that write about these same topics, because 2,000 years ago, humans were still having the same issues. They also had to fight the same battles in their mind against their fears and doubts and worries. Arjuna had the same problem. And all these other heroes that we read about from thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, right? We find the same idea again and again and again. It's the same thing, this tough internal battle with ourselves. That's the hard part. So don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel bad about it, but see the truth and take action. See the truth and take action. Overcome your fears. This is our great challenge in life. As human beings, all of us. I mean, this is real education, what I'm giving you right now and telling you right now. This is real education. Every child should learn what I'm talking about today. Okay? It's far more important than learning fractions or some other little math thing. That's also important. That's also good, but every kid needs to know this. Every human being should grow up as part of their education, understanding that it's this internal battle against our weaknesses, our fears, our doubts. That is a huge part of life, that it is completely normal and human, that we all must face this and we must learn how to do it. Okay. Have a great Sunday. It is Sunday today, a sunny Sunday. I'm going to go for a nice long walk on this beautiful day. Enjoy it. I'll also add the live recording from yesterday's show. I'll add that maybe tonight or tomorrow. Hope you're having a great day. Lots of love to you. You know, fight this battle, but fight it with courage, okay? Put a smile on your face when you're fighting this battle. It's okay. It's okay to have doubts and worries, no problem. Just keep moving forward. And as always, join my VIP program. Join my VIP program. I teach you strategies. I teach you methods and strategies and mindsets to help you do this. You know, this is Effortless English is a little different because, you know, actually thinking about John Taylor Gatto, some people, especially English teachers, don't understand my method of teaching, and they definitely don't understand the topics I talk about. Right? Because most English teachers, they just talk about English. They just talk about nouns and verbs and idioms and phrasal verbs and, you know, the phonetic alphabet and that kind of stuff. They don't talk about these, you know, philosophy and their personal fears and difficulties and challenges. Because, right, they have a school mentality. They're thinking like school teachers. But I want a real community in Effortless English. You know, it is online, so it's not the same as face-to-face. Of course, it's not the same as your family. But on the other hand, I want to be human with you. So in my lessons, I'm being human. I'm sharing with you my personal beliefs or strategies or just something I have used in my own life that's useful to me. And I'm sharing my personal stories because I want like a real human teaching and connection with you. I want to be 100% human with you, not just talk about the English language, but life also. That's real education. That's real education, not school. So anyway, join my VIP program. You get that also with me. You know that already because you listen to my show. Join my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com. Join today. Join me at effortlessenglishclub.com.